I am Lindsey Marin.
And I am Andrea Lauren.
As spiritually awakened individuals, we each knew that we had a big mission to fulfill in this life. It wasn't until fate brought us together that we became truly aware of our own worth, power, and limitless potential.
The story of our coming together will transform you, making you aware of your own abilities to heal yourself, grow your intuition, utilize your divine connections, and instill faith within yourself to create the life of your dreams. Faith brings trust, trust brings clarity, and clarity brings awareness.
I am aware now.
Welcome. I am Andrea Lauren, Spirit Council medium and intuitive life coach.
And I am Lindsey Marin, integrative multidimensional healer. For those of you who were following us as Soaring Through the Depths podcast up until now, thank you and welcome back. And for those of you who are just beginning your journey with us under our new name, I Am Aware Now, thank you so much for joining us.
Our goal for this show is to provide a home for you on your spiritual journey. We know firsthand how once you begin to open up, awaken, and expand your mind, there is no handbook for how to navigate this. We want to be your go-to, your guides, that best friend that understands what you are facing.
Yeah, although we both had years of working on ourselves independently before we met, our journeys really took off once we met and came together. So today we're going to take you back to 2 years ago when all this began for us. So since then, it's really been a roller coaster of monumental growth, miracles, healing, and stepping into our truth that you really just have to hear to believe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We both individually knew we had a big mission in this life, and we struggled to find it for years. It wasn't until we came together that the real work truly began for us. We are excited to take you along with us on this journey that is still continuing today in hopes that it will bring you clarity, direction, perspective, and through the knowledge we've gained within our own awakenings, accelerate your own spiritual journey.
A little bit of a shortcut for you.
Yeah.
So this all began 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago. Where I was at the time I was doing energy healing. I had been doing it for about 9 years. It started with a desire to heal my body, and it became a passion. Like I couldn't get enough of it. And that turned into learning everything I possibly could from the outside world. So my way of learning was more like intellectual, and it was a lot of steps and protocols and procedures, like how do I do this, instead of like intuitively letting it come out naturally.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess by the time we got to this point 2 years ago of us meeting, I had decided that I wanted to share this with the world. And I got into these workshops that I started creating workshops. I think I was doing those for I think that year, 2018. I had started doing workshops at a local yoga studio, and I was bringing about healing awareness to people who were interested. But I really was struggling with the whole aspect of bringing people in, understanding my worth, my value. Like looking back now, I can see that, but at the time, it was kind of hard for me to communicate the message that I wanted to spread. Even though I was like creating these things, I was doing things to make it happen. There was this really like big feeling of being stuck for a long time. And I just, for the longest time, I was like, how am I ever going to work through this? But it just was like, well, I have to do something. So I created the workshops thinking, okay, maybe this will branch into something bigger. And really, it was like, they were good, but it was like every workshop was like 5 people, 6 people. And they kind of were the same thing each time, where it was like, oh, I could have done better, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I created this workshop so I live in Pennsylvania. Andrea lives in Maryland, but one of my childhood best friends um, opened up a real estate business, Caprica Realty, if you like throw some names for them. Um, they opened a new office, and they were talking about having different kinds of events there to bring people in and get people excited about their work. And at the time I was like, well, I need more places to do these workshops. Why don't I come down and do a workshop at your office? So we set up this workshop, and the cool thing was, um, well, one of the cool things was that I don't actually remember what I called the workshop originally. It was like something about spiritual awakening. It was something along those lines. And I remember I put this image on the event, and it was like somebody in like the prayer position. And my friend who was hosting this was like, that looks really religious to me, and that makes me uncomfortable. So she's like, can you please change it? And I'm like, oh, that's not how I see it. But it was just like, okay. So I'm like, all right, I need something catchy, something that like brings people in. And so I changed it to, I am spiritually awake. Now what? And changed the image to this big eyeball that was like open and just, aware and awake. And um and then yeah, so we created this workshop, and then um she started inviting people. And then I guess I'll switch it over to you, Andrea, and your what,
So
what
for me, where I was within my own individual journey at that time was I had a pretty profound spiritual awakening in 2013, and that is where my journey started to like propel forward, and I started having different transformations taking place for me. But as time had gone on and I was moving through this journey, um of my personal growth, spiritual awareness, coming into uh breaking down the illusion and what really is truth, I started to, I guess some would call it like the dark night of the soul. I was definitely in what I would call like hermit mode. My gifts and abilities were stronger than they had ever been. Um, but I was not in a place where I felt worthy of myself enough or had enough self-confidence to share that with the world. So I was kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum than where Lindsay was, where she was going out and sharing her gifts and trying to like, share it with the world. I was completely closed up within my own little world, not really ready to like step out yet. And sister my sister-in-law actually works for Lindsay's best friend, one of her best friends that owns the realty company. And she told me about this event, and she's like, they're having this event here, and it's a spiritual workshop, and I really think that you should come. And for me, I'm like, yeah, no, like I'm not leaving. um so she started to like, coax me a little bit more and more. And she was like, here, just check it out. So she sent me the link for it online, because we had ordered tickets online, I believe, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was fancy that time.
I went on there and I was reading, or when I went on there, I clicked on it. And when I saw the title of the workshop, I was like stuck for a second, because I had at that time I had been wanting to write a book about my life, my journey, um, my spiritual awakening, and how throughout my awakening, I didn't have anyone around me who was going through the same thing. There was no one that I could confide in and that could understand really what I was experiencing. If I did try to talk about it, most of the time people thought I was crazy. So I wanted to write this book, and the name of the title of the book that I was going to call it was I'm spiritually awake. Now what? And so when I got online and I saw this title, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, chances of that. I'm like, that's my book. Like, um, so I started reading the description, and I'm like, well, I kind of already know this stuff um from where I was, and something was like pulling me to go. But then I was still facing like all of my my fears, I struggle with anxiety, um and like intrusive thinking, and at that time it like really kind of consumed me, on top of just creating this pattern for myself that I was within my own little world. So I was very close to almost backing out. I almost didn't go. At the last minute I decided, I was like, screw it, I'm going to go. So I bought the ticket and I had set up the arrangements to go, and then I met with my sister-in-law, and uh we went to the event. So when we got there and we walked in, Lindsay was, like pixie feeding around, you know. Um and when I saw her, I just got like this, like something just like hit me. It's hard to explain. It's just like energy. Um and it was that feeling of like, whoa, I know you, but on like the deepest like soul level inside that I have not really experienced. So therefore, that kind of like pushed me into this walls up. I'm kind of guarded, because there was also this sense of, here we go, and
Yeah.
couldn't make sense of any of this at the time. So um that
Can
was
I say
like,
really quick, I remember that moment of you walking in, and I do remember feeling like, whoa, guards up. Like it was really like, okay, she's a little scary, like a little intimidating. And I'm like, why is she, what is she doing here? There wasn't, and for me, because I think it also was being like, nervous about being the host of this event, um, that I was not in my intuitive space and was really just like, I was a little intimidated. And throughout the workshop, as you kind of like voiced your abilities, that was intimidating too, because I was like, wow, this girl really, she knows what she's doing. Like she's really got talent. And I'm like, it was really intimidating.
yeah, I would, at that point in time, I still would not really share with people that I was a medium, intuitive empath. Like I was still scared to do that. And there's aspects of that that stem from my childhood, because it was not accepted um, within my world and my reality. So to now share this with others as an adult, it was extremely difficult to do. But I noticed that I had like all the confidence I needed within that time in that workshop to share that I was, a spiritual medium, and I shared that with you. And so I kind of like caught myself by like off guard with that one as well. But
I think you like with just you sharing, like, so for instance, we did like a psychometry exercise where we each brought an item to the class and everybody had to touch it, like, or everybody was given someone else's item.
you put them all in a basket.
Yeah.
Everyone had to like pick, and,
Hmm.
and
And you picked.
you had no idea whose item it was.
Right, right.
With Lindsay's chapstick.
Yeah, yeah.
Ended up reading her off of her chapstick.
Yeah, and you told me something about like being that I needed to like be more confident in my ability, like something like that. And I was like, I'm supposed to be hosting this. Stop like bringing out my vulnerabilities. I was like, oh God.
You remember
I'm supposed to be the one who has it together.
I'm like, I was just playing. I was just playing the game.
Yeah. You did really well. It definitely it's intimidated me because I wasn't at a place where I was completely confident with my intuitive abilities. I still am working on them. I'm still working on them. And you have helped me tremendously in that. We did do the psychometry exercises. We did some meditations, I believe, and then we did a healing session. So I had everybody in the room get a comfortable spot. We turned down the lights and I walked around. And at the time I was doing reconnective healing, and I walked around the room and kind of went to each person and did a little bit of healing work, energy healing on each person. And
Can I
I think
input?
that, yeah, go ahead.
So at this point, like when we're moving into this exercise, everyone's shifting onto the floor. Like I started to feel this energetic shift within me. And I started getting really excited because I'm like, oh, something good's gonna happen. Like this is
Mhm.
Definitely worth it, This like, I was like, "Okay, I wonder what this is," And so, um, once we were all on the floor and you started to, like, move around as you were doing the energetic work on, the different individuals, I every time that you would come around me, I would feel this, like, heat and, like, this, like, wave or breeze of air, of energy, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" So, I just wanted to add that in because that was important. Because for me, again, that's following my intuition, that's following my gut and not, like, just, brushing it off, so to say. I knew something was taking place, and so I was at that point, I was, like, investigating.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny for me, as much as I believe wholeheartedly, or I have believed wholeheartedly in the work that I've done up until that point, up until recently, actually, there was still this part of me, this egoic part of me that would kind of say, like, it was like this like underlying voice of negativity that was like, "Are you really doing anything for them, Lindsay? Is this really doing anything? You're just waving your hands around people. Are you actually making a difference?" And I used to like I remember in that moment even, I'm like, "Wow, these people trust me completely. I really hope I'm doing something for them." You know?
And you absolutely were, because that's when, and the lights we had the lights out.
Yeah.
Turn the lights out, okay.
Mhm.
And I started to, like, I had my eyes closed, and I started to, like, kind of see, like, flashes of light in my, peripheral, like, with my eyes.
Mhm.
Um, and so I opened my eyes because 'cause I'm like, "What is that?" And I looked over and I was watching Lindsay, and I could not believe what I was seeing. Now, I do have the ability to be able to see, like, auras and colors and, the energy that comes off of people and things and so on and so forth. But at at this time, it wasn't as prominent as it is for me now. So to see what I was unfolding before me with Lindsay, um, like, really, like, shocked me. So when I looked over and I'm watching her as she's walking around the room, there was, like, these footprints, and, like, she was leaving footprints, and it was, like, almost as if it was, like, in the sand, like wet sand on the beach, and it had this, like, iridescent rainbow-like color around, in the footprint, and then it would, like, light up, and then it would, each time it would dissipate, but each time she'd take a step, she was leaving these energetic footprints with, this light around it, and I'm like, "What in the world? I've seen that before." And, so then I'm, like, continuing to watch her, and she was just so like, the joy that was exuding from her was really beautiful, because it was like watching her do what she truly is meant to do, what she loves to do, which is healing. And so you could see that joy and that passion coming out of her. And, obviously her energy, followed suit with that. But in energetic healing, I don't want to, like, what is reconnective healing, I'm sorry. She moves her hands a lot. Like, I don't know if can you give us an example? I need this. Sorry, you gotta do something. Like, just
Yeah. Well, for visual people watching the video, but I'm going to show you, but I'm also going to kind of explain is that I kind of like working on sort of expanding energy around people. So I start off kind of close to them, and then I kind of pull my hands away. So starting like 6 inches or so off the body, and then pulling away. And it's as if I'm like fluffing up a cloud. So I'm starting close and I'm moving outward and expanding in all directions.
okay.
And in some places, I'm swirling my hands, like kind of um, making almost like a tornado like. I can kind of, that's how I see it, is like a tornado like vortex of energy over different parts of the body. And um, I just follow it. So it's like wherever in reconnective healing, especially, they want you to um, follow it in a way that's playful. So if it feels good, do it. So if swirling my hands around your feet feels good and pulling the energy, it's almost like pulling taffy, like you're pulling and stretching. If it feels good, do it. So it's like playful and it's fun and it is joyful. And I have this like, especially when I first like tap in and start, it's like this amazing feeling of like this is the happiest feeling I've ever felt in my life. I have this rush and I'm like, okay, I'm connected. And I know that that's like, it's happening.
Yeah. And you definitely portray that too. Like when you're, I
Oh,
mean, you
thank
can see it, it exudes off of you. But
you.
as Lindsay was like moving her hands around, I started to see, so had she, when she explains that she's pulling further away from the body, when she started to do that, because she would stop in different parts where it was like with individuals, it was like this white light, this white beam was like coming up, but then all of a sudden it would start to change color. And I'm like, that is intense. Like, I've never seen that before. Then she started like pulling these tricks out her hat where it was like she was picking like colors, and like the colors would change within her energy, and I could tell what so one of my main guides is Archangel Raphael, and I'm like, Raphael, what is she doing? And he's like, well, she's adjusting the vibration and the frequency of the color for whatever it is that she's trying to heal. And I'm like, that is so, like, what in the world? So it was like, so she was matching the colors to what she was healing, and then she'd swirl things around and it would like speed up and like the colors would mix. And then, like by this point when she's walking around doing the group, and it's so she's just more so doing it in the air around for everybody. It was like shooting freaking rainbows everywhere. Like, and I'm like, it was just amazing to see that because I had never seen that before. And I'm like, there's something about this chick. Like there's something. And then
Oh, well,
it,
can I jump in?
yeah, go ahead.
Just the crazy part is that I didn't know I was doing all of that. Like it was my intuitive abilities lie in sort of more like claircognizance, like clear knowing, and also clairsentience is just clear feeling. So I'm just feeling the energy and I'm just moving with what what feels right and what intuitively kind of pops up and says like, maybe you should go to their feet, maybe you should go to their head. But it's an urge. It's not like a hearing, it's an urge, which has developed since then. But at the time it was just, I'm just moving around doing what I do. And, but really what I was doing is, and I've learned this through the progression of my healing experience is, and reconnective healing actually really opened me up to the idea of getting my brain out of the way and just allowing myself to follow the energy. So it seems that once I started doing that, these things just, it's like my soul is able to just perform in the way that it needs to perform without my human brain influence, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it was only, I mean, it wasn't maybe a minute, a couple minutes after I was like watching all of this. And then I like quickly closed my eyes because she was like walking over this way. And I'm like, I'm gonna close my eyes.
Pretend I'm asleep.
No, I'm looking because I don't hide things well on my face. Me, you know exactly what's going on by just looking at my face. So like I'm sure I was just like, like looked like a creep, but um, so I was laying there and all of a sudden I had this group of spirit come in. They are galactic beings, and I had I had started the process of really getting to know them and working with like soul star families and so on and so forth, but this was still really new to me. And so this was the first time that I had ever seen a galactic soul family, um beings from a galactic soul family show up. And they had shown up and their energy was really strong and really intense, but because of the healing that Lindsay was doing, she was able to like hold the space for them to come in, and they wanted to deliver messages for her. And before, like 30 minutes before I would have walked in that door, I would have completely shut down. That would not have happened. But in that moment, it was like everything within me was like, yes, I'm going to deliver this message. I'm going to tell her all about herself, and I'm going to let her know this is really important. You have no idea. They have never popped up for me like this before. Like I was like, oh my God, oh my God. But then that ego, that fight or flight set in and was like, "You're crazy. Like, you can't just go into phone telling somebody that their dead grandmother's standing there. Now you want to tell them they have galactic soul family. Like, you can't just be quiet. Don't do that." Um, but I knew with everything in me, it was like, I just knew. I was like, I know I'm doing this. I got to tell her. And then go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say right before, so about a month before this workshop, I became really into the teachings of Dolores Cannon, who was a past life regressionist who would take her clients back, to past lives, and then she started progressing into taking people back to before past lives, to like the interworlds between like what you would call heaven, what you would call maybe before heaven, so like other dimensions, um, people living lives as beings on other planets and other galaxies and other dimensional things that we are not familiar with. And these can be people who are beings that are of all different vibrations. So here on Earth, we are currently, well, 3D switching to 5D in the transitions we're having right now. But these other beings are like 5D, 9D, 12D, and they are so different variations of like being closer to source, being closer to God. And I had just learned about this because the teachings of Dolores Cannon say that these beings have come here to this earth and had started coming here like in the 1940s and 50s, to, as it's like, I think we mentioned this in another podcast too, but it's like they heard the call. It was time, earth needed help, and they came to help with the transition from basically earth's ascension, our ascension with the earth.
Right.
So I had learned about these beings who have been coming for years now to aid in this transition. And I was like, I think I'm one of them. I think that this is why I'm put here, But then there is this part of me like, no, Lindsey, you're not that special. You're not that special. Um, so I, and I didn't know anybody else knew about this stuff. So, but I literally just learned it a few weeks before this workshop. And then you came up to me at the very end of the workshop and said,
And I like almost vomited on you. Like, I was
yeah.
like word vomit. I was like, I need to talk to you. I have a message for you. You're like,
You're like, I'm a medium and I have a message for you. And I was just like really excited, but I was like, oh my God, what's it going to be?
yeah. I was like, I think the first thing I said to her was, "Do you know what a starseed is?"
Yes.
Ask you that.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
And I almost died. I almost died because I was like, yes, I just learned about this.
I was like, "Good, because you are one. You're an avian." Like, so you have soul family here and they have messages for you. And so it just went from there. And like, I just
Yeah.
like gave you all the different messages that they had passed on. And then I was like, you have to like, did you know when you walk, you leave footprints? Like, and when you're healing, like you're changing colors and you have colors swirling around. And like, I'm like telling you all of these things. And I remember like after I walked out of there, I was like, I can't believe I just did that. I can't believe she's gonna think I'm freaking crazy. It was, it was really crazy how like easy it was for me to just, you know,
Blurt it out.
come and tell
Yeah.
all
And
that.
I think for me, like it was so it was so confirming. Like this is something that I was feeling for myself. And it was something that I just learned and was like so excited about. And for you to walk up to me and say, do you know what a star seed is? And I was like, yeah, I just learned about it. And you're like, well, you are one, and your star family is here. And they're all applauding you and telling you, you've done it. This is it. This is the time. You said that, and I wrote this down. It's the final countdown. Like it's time. And it was like I could picture it in my mind, like I could see these beings like surrounding me while I was doing this workshop, and just like being like cheering me on. And it was like the most, number one, it was so confirming, but number two, it was like I've never felt so supported and loved before in this lifetime. I've never felt such support and love. And and it continued on from there, because as we talked more, and we'll get into that, you would bring in my star family, my galactic family, and remind me of how much support I have outside of this world. And it's like almost like, if you I love this saying, I know Dr. Wayne Dyer says it, but I know he got it from somewhere else. But he said, if I think it was Patanjali, maybe, he said, if you knew at all times who walked beside you on this path that you have chosen, you could never experience fear or doubt again. And
Right.
that's something that I try to remember always, and I had it by my bedside at one point, but when you said that, I felt it. I felt it like, and I was like, how can I ever doubt myself again when I have this team of support, galactic, otherworldly, like high vibrational support around me at all times. And it just was like it just changed everything in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really was kind of like the beginning unbeknownst to us. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't we had zero clue and idea of what really was taking place, but it was
Right.
creating this foundation, and the starting steps of what you'll learn further down, as or you'll hear us refer to are as the time is now. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like the final countdown to the time.
Hmm.
And so that's really neat.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm trying to think, did we miss anything?
Well, I gave you a hug. I was like, "Can I please hug you?" I was like, "I need to hug her." Yeah, I was like, "Hug you," because I was so excited. Like I could not. I was so excited. So then we left the workshop and well, you went home and you had an experience on your way home.
My way home. Yeah, and I had a little over an hour drive. So, um, when I was driving home, all of a sudden I started receiving all these downloads. And I forgot to.
And what is a download for people who don't know? Like how would you explain a download?
Okay, so a download is where you receive uh you receive select like information, or monumental clarity will set in, and it's like all of a sudden all the pieces come together.
And it's kind of like a computer, sort of like you download something onto a computer. It's like a downloading information, but it's into your awareness from the ethers or from your higher self, or right.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just you have that information that comes through. Sometimes for me, like when I get the downloads, it's my guides or the angels will like come with that download as well. So there is like a conversation that takes place. But um so the part that I left out, I forgot, is that walking into this, I was at this point in my awakening where I was so frustrated because I'm like, I've done all the work. I've learned all these things. I'm not living in this like illusion anymore. I'm in my, this is my reality. Like I know who I am. I know that I'm a star being. I know that I know all these things about myself. I just want to do my purpose. I just want to live my purpose. Like, why isn't this coming? And I kept waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I could not figure out what it was. So, fast forward back to driving home, after this workshop, I started receiving all of these downloads in regards to what my journey and my awakening had meant for me up until this point. And then I started seeing myself working with others and almost coaching, like doing spiritual life coaching and like psycho spiritual counseling, and doing that through my gifts and abilities, but also through the what I learned, the innate abilities and knowledge that I brought in with my soul when I came here. And it's, one of the main reasons why we're called here is because we all hold unique gifts and abilities or knowledge or experiences on a soul level that uniquely are, I don't, maybe not the right word, but like profitable to this ascension process. So I was like, oh my God, I know what my purpose is. Like, I know what I'm supposed to do. Like, this it finally came, right? I was like, I can't believe this just happened. This just really happened. Like, and so then I went home. I think a couple days later, I had Lindsay on my mind, like ever since I had left there, and I could not stop thinking about how I wanted to reach out to her. I'm like, I want to work with her. And um,
Same. I feel the same way. And I was like, a lot of it was like, oh my God, she has such amazing abilities. Like, I need to put her in my circle. Like, she needs to be part of my circle. I was like, and we said it when we were leaving. And I think you said you remembered something. Like I said, like, we need to see each other again, or we need to.
Yeah, when I was walking out the door, I was like, "All right, well, it was nice meeting you. I'll talk to you." And as I was walking out, Lindsay kind of like stopped me and was like, "Well, maybe we could talk sometime on the phone or something."
Yeah,
Made some kind of like reference of,
of connecting.
we need to connect. And for me, energetically, I received like the way that I was receiving that, it was definitely like her soul reaching out to my soul. It was like on a soul level. And so all of these things were unique. So collectively taking all of those experiences into play, I was like, I cannot look past this. There's something here. And that's where at first I thought it was, working with her. So a couple days later, I decided I was like, I had her brochure from the workshop and I was like, I grabbed the brochure and I was like, yeah, oh, it has her email on it. I'm going to send her an email. Sent her an email explaining what did I put in that? I think
You
just
talked about everything that you experienced.
yeah, on the way
You
home.
were like, "I now know what I'm gonna be doing," and I'm like, and I'm sitting here like, "Wow, I'm good at what I'm really good." Like,
Gonna wanna do.
yeah. I'm like, "It caused all that, like, all that to happen? Sweet."
Oh,
But we decided to connect. We decided to connect over the phone.
yeah. But I almost let it go because and that really did kind of shine
I wouldn't have let you.
of self for myself because when I sent that email, like it had been over a week and hadn't heard anything. And I was like, well, I guess that's done, and I just kind of like left it. And then it was like the very next day, I had
Mhm.
received an email from Lindsay and she was like, oh, I'm sorry, we were in Disney. Like our family was in Disney. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And, we started talking from there. But
Yeah, yeah. But really, like, that initial, like, it was like that was the beginning of all of the it was like synchronicities that started from the beginning, like, just our meeting was a divine, what do you wanna call it? Like, whatever you call a synchronicity, like a divine
and
occurrence, like,
yeah, or I mean, it's very serendipitous,
serendipitous, that's what you were saying. Yeah, yes,
not
yeah,
it wasn't planned,
right.
we weren't seeking this. We weren't seeking it out or anything. And it was just divinely, you know, it was divine time. It was just
Mhm,
placed at that time for that reason. And we really didn't see this. Absolutely did not see this at all until
mhm.
we started moving further within our friendship and our journey that we were able to look back and see, holy cow, this was all planned out. Like
Right, yes.
really started all this out, and like
Yeah.
it's really where the work started to begin because for me, it was like right after that email, I stepped into my second aspect of like, I thought I was having a dark night of the soul. That's why I think I call it like hermit, because it was like right after that was where I really stepped into the dark night of the soul because the transformation of my personal growth and stuff had like it just immediately started right after
Mhm.
our encounter and like us meeting.
And explain the dark night of the soul for, like, how it looked for you.
Well, there's many different perspectives of what a dark night of the soul is. Some people think it's like the worst thing in the world. Some are like, oh, it's not that bad. You only have one. Some it's like, oh, you have several. For me, the dark night of the soul is where all of your lust, all of your passion, all of your drive and focus on, like the material world, your 3D life, like the ins and outs, the 9 to 5s, all those aspects of your life kind of like fall away. And you're really left sitting in this space that there are at times can definitely feel like a void, but the it's the most intimate process of purging
Mm,
old aspects that don't serve you because you have no choice but to sit there and look at them because when all of the other distractions of what you think makes you happy or distracts you from really looking within yourself to find out what the core of the unhappiness is and not masking or feeding the symptoms with distractions in your everyday life,
mhm,
you have to sit there and you're starting to be shown the core of this unhappiness or this trauma. But it shifts, there's phases of it because as you start to like move through that, you start to make those changes within yourself and you're like, okay, I have this blank canvas, or all of a sudden I have all of these things, I see them and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to change them. And that's where I was in this case. It was like, whoa, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with this in my life. And I'm not happy with the way that I do this or that. And I've never really had the desire to like, the desire was there, but the determination to make those changes just wasn't there. I would give up on myself easily. But in this
Mhm.
case, at this starting point, it was a different tune, which
Yeah.
we can get more into in our next episode,
Yes.
as we continue our story. Is there anything else you want to add? Because I feel like we should like wrap up
Yes.
our story
um
at this point for this
Yeah,
episode.
no, I think that that's it. I just like want to reiterate how how confirming, well, just to kind of like plug Andrea a little bit, like how much confirmation she has been able to give to me for the past 2 years that we've known each other. Her abilities are like literally, I tell people they are literally out of this world. So I highly, highly recommend, if you are on this journey, book a session with her and find out about your star family, about your guide, your spirit guides, about your archangels, so that you can start feeling the support that she helped me feel. Because you really, like, when you're on this journey, it is like, you have, now you have us, but you also, and we're going to teach you along the way how to connect with those people more, with those beings more, those supports more, as well as your higher self. But it really is a good way to get started down this path if you're having trouble finding direction.
I can tell you it. These beings, your spirit council, they're with you every second of every minute that you're living this incarnation, and they they know your chart. They have the higher perspective. They're not um biased or in what's the word, like influenced by
Mhm.
the emotions that you're experiencing and everything else. It's like they have this blueprint and they're like, okay, this is what you're supposed to be working on, so now we got to bring in these things into your life and so on and so forth. But if you can become aware of who that council, who your team is,
Mhm.
and you can start building that relationship and communicating with them, it's like having, like that. I mean, you have like Lady Luck on your side at that point, because
Mhm.
they have your chart. They know what you're trying to achieve on a soul level, and they are going to be able to give you the highest perspectives, the greatest advice and knowledge. I mean, they're amazing. They're invaluable. So,
Yeah. I like to see it as like, if you were like somebody in power or somebody like of a high stature, and you have all these people working around you to help your life, like, be, you have somebody who handles your schedule, you have somebody who handles your like scheduling upcoming events, somebody who like makes your lunch for you. Like, you have like all of these people. If you were like an executive, you have all these people under you that are helping, that are supporting you, and most people don't know that they can tap in with them and receive all that they need to navigate this life.
yeah.
So really what it comes down to is, when once you realize that, it's like
Yeah.
you can step into who you need to be, because you have that support.
And it's really cool because they even do things like communicate with other people's spirit guides. So if there's someone that's about to come into your life, oh, trust and believe your team has already went and talked to their team. Like, all right, so how are we going to get them together? How are we going to have them meet? How are we going to do it? So, I mean, it's just, yeah,
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very beneficial. But
Mhm. Yeah, and if you want to book a session with either of us, we are our Linktree link is on our Facebook and our Instagram profiles, and you can follow them to be able to contact us. We are working on building our website, so we will have some really good offers for you soon. But until then, just reach out, and we even respond on to a comment on one of our social media accounts, and we are happy to get back to you and make this happen.
yeah,
All
sounds
right.
good.
Yeah. So we tune in with us next week as our story continues to unfold. We can't wait to share with you how these experiences have brought monumental growth and healing into our lives. And we know that it will do the same for you.
Yes. So thank
Thank you
you very
so much for being here.